The views, comments, and opinions of the following program do not necessarily reflect those of Morris Media Studios, MorrisMediaLive.com, or its affiliates. Listener discretion is advised.
Assalamu alaikum. Peace be unto you. I'm Sister Charlene Muhammad. Thank you for joining Liberated Sisters right here on Morris Media Studios. And Eid Mubarak to all of the Muslims. And thank God we have made it through this very blessed month of Ramadan. I'd like to say that again, Liberated Sisters will soon be returning to its regular programming. However, there's so much happening that I'm just still compelled to bring you as much information as I can that I feel will help us in this time of crises in terms of the spiritual guidance coming from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan through his national assistant and other information in terms of the good works that the community is doing locally and nationally. Today, that good work focuses on the issue of domestic violence. I want you to go to finalcall.com. You can read our cover story there and learn about the activism around protecting people who are experiencing domestic violence, women, children, during this time of the COVID-19 pandemic. The cover story reads, No Safe Haven, the problems of domestic abuse, sexual exploitation during COVID-19. This is our Final Call cover story for this week. And with that, I thought it would be fitting to run excerpts of a broadcast that I did in December 2018, and that is with Dr. Akil Bashir, very prominent, staunch activist and advocate here for peace, as well as his counterpart in Houston, Texas, for that matter, Brother Derek Muhammad. So please spread the word. Liberated Sisters is bringing this to you. I wanted to speak to brothers about what can be done to end the scourge of domestic violence, the killing of our sisters and young women and girls at the hands of the very men that they love or once loved them. So more in the show. The introduction of the brothers is here. I'll say right now, thank you, Sister Felicia, the Poetess Morris, for having us here, and all of you for tuning in. Subscribe to the Final Call at finalcalldigital.com. You can read the entire paper there, and thank you. If it's impacting our community or can uplift us as a people, let's talk about it. And now here are Brothers Against Domestic Violence. Peace. Right now, as we get into the topic for today, Brothers Against Domestic Violence, my intention, because I recognize I was very emotional when I spoke during 4 shows ago, when I spoke about the 6 black women, young, beautiful black women that were killed at the hands of their boyfriends, ex-boyfriends, husbands, ex-husbands, and that was 6 in a week over the, I say, Thanksgiving holiday, right? As Minister Farrakhan says, such a phony holiday. But because what do they have to be thankful for, right? So I had Miss Amira and Miss Benita Walker on to talk about it. Yeah, she talked about you, Dr. Akil. And so we were just really delving into this, and I thought that I would want to have the brothers on to give their perspective because, one, I could feel you. When we were talking from the very first show about it, I could feel you. And sometimes the unspoken word is more communicative, and the energy of that led me to say I need to have some brothers on to talk about this with their perspective unfiltered. So we will turn now to Dr. Akil Bashir of the Professional Community Intervention Training Institute. This peacemaker right here, a long-time brother. Thank you, Dr. Akil, for being here again.
And thank you for inviting me, Sister Charlene.
Yes, sir. Assalamu alaikum. Walaikum salam.
Yes, ma'am.
And is Brother Derek with us? Okay, great.
Peace.
Hey,
Peace.
Brother Derek.
Hey, peace, my brother.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. I can't see you all. Can you see me?
Nope. But we
Okay,
can hear
it's
you
fine.
very well. So where are you?
Okay.
What's going on? You got the lens on your phone or something? I really want to see you, Brother Derek.
Let me see.
I want people to have the full experience of you both. But we'll continue with the dialogue as we work on that. But just continue talking, do whatever you need to do. But I asked you both to come on because of the care, the sincere respect I know you have, and that the communities you serve have for you, right? And so I'll start with you first, Dr. Akil, to ask you, what are your thoughts about that really horrible tragedy, like 6 women, separate, of course, incidents killed, 6 black women killed at the hands of their significant or not so significant others in the span of 1 week?
Well, it's not shocking, predicated on the narrative that has been established in this country as it relates to our women, the lack of respect for women in general, et cetera. You know, we have accepted a narrative, and we have accepted a story that objectionably is okay for the disrespect of our women, to destroy our women, to have extreme detriment towards our women. Now, when I say I'm not surprised, Sister Charlene, that's not that I'm not moved by the 6 sisters. Obviously, that is shattering. But at the end of the day, when are we going to get to the point to where we are going to change this narrative? When are we going to get to the point where we're going to realize, and especially as men, that we are the protectors of our women. We are the protectors of our community. We are the protectors of our children. And when we don't properly assume the role and do what we're supposed to do within that role strategically, psychologically, and physically, we have to look back in inflection. We have to really take a look at ourselves and say what we are doing or what are we not doing. At the end of the day, I would say this. We have got to build processes and systems which are going to give us the capability to change the output of what we're seeing. When you do not like what you have to change that input to get a different output. We've got serious work to do. We've got serious strategic planning that has to be done. And then we've got to bring validated practices that have been proven to work in these environments to the table and not be fearful in using those tactics to change the narrative.
Brother, okay, wait. We're getting ready to hear from the man of God. Brother Akil, you sound like somebody I know and love, and you fired that up. Brother Derek, stay right there. I want to play this clip from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan on We Must Respect Women. You made me think of that right there.
Ma'am.
Look into Washington. If we are not in unity, we can't force the Justice Department to do right by us. So we're going to have to unite and be willing to pay the price to be free. It's better to be dead than to live like we're living. You don't have any life. Look at your people. Beautiful young black girl in West Virginia. But it's because of us that don't love and respect our women enough. That a white man could do that to a black woman and expect nothing in return. Go ahead. No people allow their women to be hurt and they don't come back with something. What kind of men have we become? And as long as your woman is a bitch and a whore in your mind, you'll never stand up for her. And if you won't stand up for her and the children that she produces for us, it is better that we be dead. That's right. And soon you will be. We got to stand up. Yes, sir.
We've got to stand up. Dr. Akil, you reminded me of that clip.
Well, spot on. Look, what we constantly do will multiply. Mm-hmm. What we constantly say will continue, and it will broaden. And it is time that we put our foot down, and we've got to unapologetically deal with the power base that consistently disrespects and destroys our women. We have no option.
No option.
We have no option.
No option. Brother Derek, assalamu alaikum again.
Wa alaikum salam. Can you see me now?
No, but we can. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That's my brother right there. I wanted to see you. How you doing, Brother Derek?
All praise is due to Allah. And well, it's an honor to be on your show, my sister.
Man, it's a privilege and honor to have you here. And thank you for joining us today, Brother Derek. Y'all both put in so much work. I see you on the move right now, so I'm really grateful you're here. Brother Derek, I want to ask you, one thing I thought about was I was really sad a few days ago. I saw a clip of a Caucasian mother that was missing. She went missing and it's national news. And I was sad because she's missing. And they were saying that she had muffins still hot. They were still hot in the back of her car, like untouched. Like this woman was not planning to be gone, right? And but I thought about the 6 sisters that were killed over Thanksgiving break and how we just don't get the attention. And so I'm not looking to mainstream anymore, right? But what I'm saying is even in our communities, Brother Derek, right, there's not that response. Can you just give your perspective on this mistreatment? And now it's beyond. I mean, mistreatment is one thing, but I'm talking about murders of black women.
Yes, ma'am. I think it's a universal principle that states that men protect what it is that they value. If you go to the hood and you see a brother walking down the street with a nice gold chain, if you go up and you try to touch his gold chain, he might attack you. In some cases, men value their cars. They value other material things. And if you get close to that material thing, you could very well be killed. I think we live in a sad day where we would put away trinkets to ensure that nobody touches or steals or harms a trinket. But at the same time, we have lost, many of us have lost.
Oh, okay. You froze a bit, Brother Derek. Oh, there he is. Brother Derek, repeat your last few words. You said many of us have lost.
I said many of us have lost the natural love for our sisters so much that we would protect our vehicles faster than we would our sisters.
Yeah.
And if you would just really give that some thought, that in and of itself speaks to our condition. But the question has to be asked, where did this devaluation of the black woman come from?
Okay.
Now, look at the war on drugs. If you just look at the war on drugs systematically devalue the black woman in society. Why? When crack cocaine was put on the streets in the 80s, by George H.W. Bush, the same man that folks are shedding tears over and walking around wearing colored socks. But this man and his policies were greatly responsible for the destruction of our communities. But when crack was put on the street and women in their frustration began to use these drugs, we started to put jackets on women like, she's a crackhead, things of that nature. Well, the brothers were out selling the drugs. And just as the war on drugs was a war against black people, it fed into this thing called mass incarceration. So now you've got black men being locked up at breakneck speed by the tens of thousands. Well, this leaves the black woman in society having to rear the children by herself. And if she's on drugs, oftentimes, as it was in my case, her children had to come and live with the grandmother until she could go to rehab. So now look at the landscape. You've got all of these black men locked up in prison. And it's gotten to the point to where, according to statistics, they say that for every 100 black women in the free world, there are only 83 black men.
Woo.
So that means if you line up 100 black women, okay, all of them wanting to have a healthy relationship with a man, due to mass incarceration and other systematic attacks on our community, 17 of those women have already been, I don't want to say disqualified, but they've already been put down because there are not enough black men.
Wow.
So the point I'm making is whenever you have an over influx of a product to come into a particular market, the price goes down. The price goes down. The product becomes devalued. Why? Because it's no longer really in demand. So those are just the numbers as it relates to the devaluation of the black woman. But when we start talking about the spiritual, mental, down into the soul of the black man and the way that he sees the black woman, we've got a whole lot of work to do.
Yeah.
And coming from a household, I was raised in a household where I witnessed domestic violence. Mm-hmm. I remember being a sixth grader, 11 years old, having to wake up 3 a.m. in the morning and physically defend my mother against her boyfriend. This is what I went through. And last week when I was in Miami, for some reason, Allah put it on my heart to bring it up while I was speaking to a group of middle school students. Yeah. And I was asking myself the question, Allah, why did you put that on my heart? Because it's a very painful thing to talk about. Mm-hmm. But once the assembly was over, a young man came up to me and he said to me, "Thank you so much for your speech. It inspired me. And oh yeah, I just had to do the same thing for my mama last week." So it's a long-standing problem in our community. But what I will say is domestic violence is sort of it's like a cancer. When we see signs of it, we have to diagnose it and deal with it when we see it. We can't wait. If we do, we'll have situations that we're in right now where our sisters, 6 or 7 of them, you say, were murdered.
6 that we know of. 6 that we know of.
Just 6 that we know of that were reported.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes. We got to cut it off at the head when we see it.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Thank you. How do we do that, Dr. Akil?
Well, like anything, what does the doctor do? The doctor who is skilled goes for the root cause. The doctor who is skilled looks at what is the rationale to make the symptom happen. The symptom of domestic violence, we have to clearly understand that whole narrative. Domestic violence and domestic abuse are 2 different things. Domestic violence is where violence is used to control. Domestic violence will morph into domestic abuse, which ends up totally controlling the individual who is being abused, both psychologically, spiritually, etc. We've got to be clear when we want to go in and start looking at those root causes. We've got to bring the actual expertise that could tear this down systematically and look at what's really going on. So when the domestic violence is not checked, it will turn into domestic abuse. And if the woman is under that domestic violence for any period of time, eventually the domestic abuse will end up being the controlling factor, not the violence itself. She becomes numb to the violence, but the abuse itself, both psychologically and spiritually, is what will control that woman at the end of the day. So if that's the case, and if we're going to go in strategically as doctors, we have got to look at changing the narrative or changing the story which has been accepted by that woman. See, we were all born into stories, and I'm so glad Brother Derek brought up what has transpired in the home. I too came from a home with domestic violence, and I will tell you, not having the balance, the assumption was that this must be okay, even though internally we knew it wasn't right. So if we're going to go in as strategic doctors, we've got to have a strategy. What does that strategy become? We've got to change that story. The way we change that story is, first of all, we got to detect what is that story. What is the actuality of what is causing the individual to do what he does? Now, we've got to clearly understand, as black men in this society, as black women in this society, we are all traumatized, and we have truly never dealt with the real trauma, the crisis that causes us to be dysfunctional. Don't try to put a nice set of clothes on a dirty body, because you're still going to have a dirty body at the end of the day. So what we have to do is look for the root cause with the individual, which means getting into their normality. See, this is what practitioners do.
Wow.
Don't tell me nothing about domestic violence, damn it, if you haven't experienced it, if you haven't seen it, if you haven't seen the effects of it, etc. You can't even talk on the issue because you don't know the trauma that it leaves. So once I detect, then I have to defer. I have to change the story. I have to change the acceptance. I've got to get the individual to see a different strategy that gets them the results. Believe it or not, the domestic abuser, he is getting results from that abuse. He is getting something that he or she wants, and there are female abusers that they want at the end of the day. If I could find what that is and replace it. Third, I would say now I have to inspire. I have to inspire that individual to take ownership, to want to change his or her own narrative. I'm not going to do that.
Wow.
I could bring in all the expertise in the world, but if I don't get that person to to change that thinking process, I will never get them to redirect themselves and do something different.
Man, y'all teaching. We got a call, and we're going to stay with the brothers after this call. But I want to say, as we pull in the caller, thank you all who are tuning in online and sharing your comments. And, of course, calling in. Victoria Muhammad said, Dr. Kill, absolutely there is a difference. And there's a lot of likes and loves going out as you brothers are speaking. So thanks for talking to us about this, because we're tired. We're tired, but you both said something right, that there's a root. Like, we didn't just wake up this way and become at odds with each other. But I remember I don't remember the name of the organization, but I remember their slogan, and it says, buy a girl a lunch so that a pimp doesn't have to. See, that goes to what you're saying about finding the need and then replacing it. But oh my God. Sis, let's take the call. I'm getting frazzled here talking about domestic violence. Caller.
Yes, assalamu alaikum. This is Sister Shauna Joy.
Wa alaikum salam, Sister Shauna Joy. Another one of our favorite listeners, viewers. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm so blessed to be on the show. And, just listening to this, it really correlates to what you spoke on earlier in the Justice Report with the sisters and the high rate of young black women being expelled from school. And the brother, the doctor, was mentioning, how we're indoctrinated in this system. If we look at most of our black children, their first experience in the white man system is when they go off to school. And in my mind, that's a big part of the root of it, because we indoctrinate our children in this white man school that does not teach them knowledge of self. It does not teach them to love self or to love their own black brothers and sisters. So we have, at this beginning of such a young age, they go into kindergarten and preschool and kindergarten and first grade, 5, 6 years old. And we're taught that at 6 years old, our children are gods and they can know exactly what they will do in their purpose. But at that age, in this devil school, they're getting taught self-hate and white supremacy. And then our women, our young girls, we were taught that, kill the man and then spare the female. But this wicked race is at its very end. Its very end. Their mercy was in 1914. It is no longer here. So they are trying to take everyone with them. And if you can take that black woman that is the mother of civilization out, she's not producing any black men, women, children, nothing else. So it's, we have to start at such a young age. We have to sacrifice.
Yeah.
We have to sacrifice our time, our money, our comfortability, our way of life from the root, from the womb, to start teaching and training our children to love each other, and to start teaching and training our young men the morals of not just self-respect, but the respect of women. But they're not going to get that if we allow for other people to teach and train us, because if a man is not going to treat you right, he's not going to teach you right.
That's right.
So we have to make the sacrifice of when our children are young to say, man, maybe I can't work this job that's going to pay me, I'm going to get paid $65,000, and maybe I have to take a job that's paying $30,000 to be able to stay home and nurture my children and raise them right. Maybe I'm going to have to send my children to a small black private school, or maybe we have to start a homeschooling coalition, because it starts in the home. Yeah. It starts in the home, but again, going back to that system. Yeah. They created a system where there's only a black woman in most homes, 75% of homes. Yeah. So there's no two. So it's really going to come to the point where we're going to have to say, I'm just going to have to suffer and sacrifice. Yeah. I'm just going to have to move out of this house and go to a one-bedroom and start saving my money and just create an environment that's wrapped around what's best for our future generations. We're going to have to take a hit to set up a paradise for our children and their children and their children's children. Yeah. We're going to have to just take that hit. Yeah. Because no one is fighting for us outside of the minister and a few people, followers and supporters. But it's not enough, because we have to love each other. We have to love self, and it starts with home, and then it spreads outward to the community.
Spreads abroad. Yeah. Thank you, Sister Shauna Joy, so much for listening, viewing, and calling in. She brought to mind, brothers, the funeral was just held for 9-year-old Mackenzie Adams, beautiful little black sister, was killed. She killed herself because of bullying, but that she makes me think about that when we talk about what's happening in the home, the respect and the value. I wanna ask, Brother Derek, remember when we spoke together on a panel that Sister Ebony Safia Muhammad of Hurt to Healing magazine had, and I'm thinking about a response that I had. Like, I was getting triggered all over the place, right, because of suffering domestic violence, verbal abuse, like years and years and years and years of it, and But pardon me, it wasn't years and years and years of it. It carried years and years and years. The duration was only a short amount of time, but the effect of it has been decades, right? And I recognize that. But when we were speaking about responses, I kept asking a lot after the panel, why was I so aggressive? Why did I kept talking about kill, kill, kill? Do you remember that? Like people were asking, what do we do? What do we tell our children? Like, you let them know that I will kill you if you do something to my child. And I had to go back and remember. One of the other panelists mentioned that children won't say anything if they hear a parent say that, because they don't want something to happen to you. So I was thinking in the catch-22, like, what are you going to do? Because they need to have some assurance. But do you remember that panel?
I do, yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Can you talk about strategies that Shauna Joy mentioned, starting in the home? But some people don't have the luxury. You mentioned it. You talked about the disproportionate number of males to females, and that's just dealing with incarceration. But what about those that don't want a woman? Yeah. You see, we also have that population, so you can take some of that other 18 out. Because they might be.
You said, what about those who don't?
I said, what about households that don't? Shauna Joy spoke about households where they're only female headed, and you talked about the disproportionate incarceration rates and how that affects male-female availability. And then I said, then you have some that might be free that don't want women.
I agree. Yes.
So how do we deal with that?
There are many who are free, like you said, that may not even want a woman. And again, we're just dealing with the numbers. Right. And when I discuss those numbers, I always make it a point to point out to my dear sisters to not get discouraged by those numbers. Because, what is for you is for you. Yes, and the key is for you to have so much respect and value for yourself.
That's right.
That I'm saying that because I feel like domestic violence and domestic abuse is an outgrowth of the devaluation of self on both sides.
Mm.
On both sides. So we have to get to the root of number one, why the man who's abusing the woman does not value himself enough or know enough about himself to know that you came from the womb of a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And the way you treat this woman that's standing in front of you is a reflection on some level of how you feel about your own mother.
Yeah.
Because the black woman is the mother of civilization.
Right.
We have to get to the root cause of why it is this young sister, this young girl, or this woman is allowing herself to systematically and continually be abused by a man. Sometimes our girls grow up in households where they get no attention whatsoever, especially from their fathers. So if they end up in a relationship and this man is giving them that attention that they've always longed for, it's a matter of what am I willing to accept in order to continue to get this attention? And some of them even see the abuse, unfortunately, as a form of attention. I remember being young and talking to, some of my female friends, and they would confide in me and say that when their boyfriend would physically abuse them, it made them feel as if though he loved them.
Wow.
Yes. But I think it all goes back to the devaluation of self. And there has to be a righteous education taking place that gives knowledge to self to both sides.
Yes, sir.
Because knowledge of self is what produces respect for self.
Yeah.
And we must understand the difference between black culture and slave culture. You see, this physical abusing of one another, this is not our nature. This is learned behavior that we picked up from our oppressors that has been allowed to be carried on for decades.
Right.
So you have to also remember, or we have to remember, that in the beginning chapters of the Bible, in the book of Genesis, the first thing God gives man is power. Power over the land, power over the sea, and every living, creeping thing that crawleth. And I think this is what's at the root of domestic violence, and I'm speaking of that which men commit against women. It's a power issue. So Charlene,
wow.
And you're dealing with a black man who by nature knows he is a king. He knows that he is supposed to have power and control over his own destiny, but he lives in the world where he ain't got none of that. And so if he's dealing with an intellectually strong black woman, if he feels as if though he can't handle her here, then he has to resort to this in order to maintain control over her, because he feels as if though this is the only control I have. So I feel as if though there's certain work that we as men have to do with one another.
Yes, sir.
Because learning how to be a man, inclusive in that is the learning of how to treat a woman. That goes to what it is that you do for a woman. And it also speaks to the things that you must never do to a woman.
That's right.
Because when a man hits a woman, I don't know, maybe he heard some rap song that makes him think that in some way that empowers him. That doesn't empower you, black man. That straight up devalues you. It weakens you. And it speaks to how much you don't know about being a man. And that's another thing. Our purview or our definition of what manhood is has been given to us by a culture that was created around what we've learned in Western society. So that has to be unlearned, if you will. So I feel like there's work that women have to do with other women that men can't do.
That's
to
right.
teach them
Yes,
why it is you're so valuable that anything that seeks to harm you physically, mentally, or otherwise is really beneath you.
That's right.
And work, and men, we have to do work on one another. And
Yes, sir.
when I say work, I'm talking about some real work. And every now and then you might have to grab a brother by the collar. Straight like that.
It's called the pipe squad.
And let him know, not only is this something that you don't do, this is not something that will be tolerated in our ranks.
Yeah. As we continue, I want to give you both. Thank you, Brother Derek. Brother Akil, Dr. Akil said the pipe squad. I'm like, yeah, shake them. But I'm going to give you some comments off social media, our viewers, and then bring a promo, and then we're going to come back. I want to ask you some questions
Yes,
too.
ma'am.
So look, Brother Hannibal, assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Brother Hannibal. Wa alaikum salam, right out of Phoenix. Thank you so much for being on this platform, Shauna Joy. Sister Charlene thinks that you gave a good teaching, Sister Shauna. Angel Wright comments that abusers do not deal with all women. They can see something in certain individuals and they target that brokenness. Once they tap into it, they manipulate it and then attempt to destroy. Thank you for those comments, everyone. I want to come back. I want to ask you this now, and we'll come back with the answer.
Okay.
You know, sometimes it's also to take down what they see as strong, because in my own situation, I was very strong, well loved. I didn't know anything about what we're talking about here. And for me, you know, I've just always been on this pedestal, right? I'm not saying a perverted type of thing, but my family loved me. And so what I saw was like maybe this envy and jealousy after I analyzed it going back, you know, because I didn't have a weakness part, but it was just the strength was just being stripped away. But I want to talk about how that happens. And Brother Derek touched on the rap, but I want to also talk about go deeper into how culture plays into this in terms of the music, in terms of the shows. I mean, give me a break. We just had Superfly. Give me a break. Yeah. So how does all of this and barbershop talk, and also how men tell their daughters to be virtuous, but not their sons, you know, applaud when they have 59 women on the belt, but tell their daughter to be one other way. So just to talk about this male culture and how, as we need to dig in and really show our girls what they are and teach them their value and how they should be treated by men. What is taking place with the brothers for this to be happening? So we're going to come back and start with you with that, Dr. Kill, and then you, Brother Derek. But what I want to call attention to right now is NFA Studios, Never Fall Again Studios. We have our, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. We have our young brother Ben X, who not only makes his living through his social media channels, but he's a strong champion for the teachings and spreading the word and reaching people where they are, his generation, his peers, but not just them. This brother doesn't just appeal to young folks, but he's able to take the message of the minister and put it in a way that attracts those who need to hear it and just frankly need the teachings. And he was recently speaking and I think it was in Houston, not Houston, but it was in Texas, and YouTube shut his channel down. And one thing about it is this is how the brother makes his livelihood as well. He has that dual track running. And one good thing about it is we have Never Fall Again Studios. It's a subscription-based channel, but we're not waiting. We have a group of young folk in the nation who recognize that we're not waiting so that a Netflix won't put Minister Farrakhan on as they promised to do, last minute pull the plug, or they snatch a Brother Ben X, right? And so Never Fall Again Studios is having a subscription drive, and this is a clip that I would like to share with you about it and ask you to please subscribe to Never Fall Again Studios, NFA Studios. It's really great. Here it is.
Hundreds of cities, millions of people, one man. now in the palm of your hand, on any device. For over 60 years, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has dedicated his life to spreading the message of freedom, justice, and equality to people all over the world. Log in to NFA Studios and get unlimited access to a vast library of his life's work, plus never released lectures, interviews, and exclusive content. With new releases every week, NFA Studios is your one-stop destination for spiritual and mental upliftment. And now, introducing NFA Original Content, featuring shows such as Dinner with the Minister, How to Eat to Live Cooking Show, 40 Miles, the series.
In this series, we're going to look at the history of the Nation of Islam.
Food Nation, and much more. The wait is over. Welcome to the evolution. Welcome to NFA Studios.
You'd be surprised. My subscription is only $9.99 a month, and I get all of that. I mean, just imagine, I've been a follower of the minister for a few short years, going on 22 years, and there are never before things that I get to watch. And so here's some more. Oh, yes, Brother Hannibal and Sister Shauna reminded me that Brother Ben was speaking at the Austin Mosque, and he was talking about closing the gap. YouTube just shut down his presentation. So we're with you, Brother Ben. Don't worry about that. I got you. But Dr. Akil, so get your subscription to NFA. You can subscribe for $9.99, and I think it's one platform, but for a couple of bucks more, you can watch it on multiple devices. And I can watch it on 2 or 3 with my subscription. But and there's new content coming out consistently. Brother Michael Amir Muhammad and Brother Wali Muhammad, as well as others with them, Brother Brian and Muhammad, and many more. There's a great team putting this together. So thank you, NFA Studios. It reminds me of being right here, right? Yes. At Morris Media Studios. We don't need you. We don't need you, mainstream media. We do not need you. And I want to say, if you're not reading the Final Call or the LA Sentinel, LA Watch Times, Our Weekly, the Dallas Weekly, or any of the black press papers, I'm questioning you. Like, where are you getting your news? It's okay to watch it. I watch it. I watch the mainstream, and then I come back and I check it, or we check them in our own press. But where are you getting your news and information from? And for God's sake, don't say just these blogs, because blogs are blogs. News is news. But Dr. Akil, so go ahead.
Well, so much good talk. Let me jump in because I do think a little bit more needs to be stressed on strategy, solutions, and answers, and then I'll flip back to your question. Yeah. In terms of strategies, look, we need to understand something. What we're going through, it's not going to be easy, but easy is not an option. See, one of the things that adversity does is introduces you to yourself. And when you're a traumatized individual, when you're a traumatized community, we have to take some real inflection and see where we're at and be willing to make the sacrifices, as the brother so well said, to change. But one of the things we need to do in our communities, first of all, we need to be having strategic sessions. We need to be sitting down, strategizing what is going on in our community, what is going on with the domestic violence, but more inclusively, violence in general. We need crisis maps of where these things are happening. Secondly, we have to create safety hubs. We have to create hubs where these sisters and sometimes brothers can go and be around a resilient team of individuals that are going to be able to buffer what is going on and give that individual some options. Third, we've got to create crisis critical response interrupters. Interrupters will interrupt the dynamic or the narrative. So we've got to train people in the ability to intervene in these venues and then be able to go in, get between, and redirect. Now, in that redirection, you're not simply trying to suppress. What you're trying to do, as I mentioned earlier, is look at the root causes and look at the trauma and then try to redirect that trauma where that person takes ownership. And fourth and last in this process, we've got to have some damn street courts. We got to have individuals that will enforce once that redirectional change has been brought on board. You are not going to create this damage and breach our community anymore. We will deal with you. We will do what we need to do with you. Far too often in marginalized communities, inclusive of Black and Latino communities, we do not hold ourselves to a higher standard enough. We let ourselves off the hook too much. No more. Those days are over. Wow. Now let's talk about real quickly the formation of what you're talking about. Look, For every negative, it takes 17 positives just to balance out that negative. So when you're constantly infused with mental destruction, when you're constantly infused with canceristic poison, when you're constantly infused with such a degree of negativity, somewhere that is going to become your narrative or your story. And like I mentioned earlier, most of our stories we are born into or they are made for us. Very rarely will individuals in life end up creating their own story at the end of the day, because most of us are sleepwalking through life. We're just trying to get through. And then when you add trauma on top of that, we are really looking at any way to buffer life in general. We need to be real clear on something. Life is consequentially hard. Life is meant to be hard because through that hardness of life, that character is formed, that manifestation of self is formed. So we have to clearly understand we have got to change the mental thought, the physical thought, the psychological thought that has been allowed to come into our mindset. We have got to filter that and redirect that with more constructive thoughts that end up defining that picture for us. Lastly, and I want to say this, and I think it becomes very important in the process, what we resist will persist. If we do not handle it, we don't have an option in handling what we need to handle. We clearly need to understand at the end of the day, we have got to create processes and systems that are going to create the change. We have got to get these younger brothers and these younger sisters, and we have got to guide them where they need to go. We were talking about manhood. A long time ago, Brother Naeem Akbar wrote an excellent book on manhood, and he brought about the stages of manhood, the fact that you're born as a male, you're transformed into a boy, and then you're mature into that manhood. That is a process. Indigenous communities have always had a rites of passage program and as a circles of elders to look to guide where we're going. Yeah. My last point on this, as we refer to the physical interaction between the men and women, men have got to step up more and realize the battle is not with her. The battle is with yourself. Well, now. See, if I have to hit a woman, beat on a woman, that gives me no power. Power speaks to power. And any time that I have to physically dominate, any time that I have to psychologically dominate, any time my power does not lead the directional charge through my actions and behaviors, I have to really question exactly what am I operating from.
Wow, look, did you hear it? We have some marching orders there. And I want to say this is one of the taglines, one of the mottos, violence reduction through proactive instruction. That's right. We just heard that there. Like we can pull any one of those and start and see a change. Brother Derek, I hear you.
Yes. Let me say that I concur. I righteously concur with everything my brother has just said. And what I heard at the root of what he was saying, which he said so eloquently, is that
thank you, brother.
We have to stop fronting.
Teach.
Like we're not in the crisis.
Teach.
See, we have to bring that same energy to domestic violence that we bring to police violence.
Yes, sir.
Come on.
Yes,
right.
Let's bring that same energy. See, I can't go out into the street and say Black Lives Matter and then go home and beat my wife, who is the womb that God uses to produce Black life.
Y'all teaching.
So I say that to say that this conversation that we're having today, this conversation needs to be had 1 million times over.
Yes, sir.
Throughout the country, because it's inspiring me. This is going all the way down into my bones. And I told you last week, I'm speaking in front of some middle school children, and God just put it in my soul to start telling them these stories.
Yeah.
And then the young man came up to me and confirmed for me, yeah, I'm going through it now. And then I get the call to be on this show. So it's inspiring me to going into, 2019.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
There has to be a cultural revolution centered around domestic violence. There has to be a spiritual revolution centered around domestic violence. There has to be an educational and training revolution centered around preventing domestic violence, because We make monsters out of our children when we force them to get used to what we've gotten used to.
Perpetuating it.
When madness becomes normal,
teach, brother,
then our communities turn into a jungle.
Wow.
And
Sorry.
9 times out of 10, the young sister who accepts domestic violence in her college relationship only accepts it because she saw her mother accept it, who saw her grandmother accept it, who saw her great-great-grandmother. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
So while we're going through a healing from all types of trauma as a people, and this is not a static issue, this is a dynamic issue, there's certain things that we have to stop doing just in order to continue the process of healing. And beating on women, and I know that domestic violence can, go the other way as well, but physically and mentally abusing women because we as men have not found our power, our personal power yet, that is something that has to stop. In the time of war in the military, they teach you that if you see a fallen soldier, you must first start the breathing, stop the bleeding, protect the wound, and then treat for shock.
Yes, sir.
Okay? So before we as a community can even continue our treatment from the traumatic shock of 300 plus years of chattel slavery, we got to stop the bleeding.
Yeah.
And in this context, the bleeding represents the abuse of our sisters.
Yes.
We got to stop abusing one another, period.
Yeah.
Because and I'll make this final point. I ask young people the question, if a lion faces off with a hyena, who wins that fight? Easy, the lion. The hyena has no win whatsoever in the fight with a lion. So the hyena trots off. He's somewhere off watching. Now another lion comes into the lion's den, and these two lions start fighting one another. One lion kills the other. But even the lion that won, he won what's called a Pyrrhic victory because he broke his leg in the process. Now, the hyena's off watching. That same lion that he couldn't beat in the fair fight, he rounds up a few other hyenas and he goes and he eats him alive. Why? Because the powerful lion was weakened by fighting his own brother. And that's what happens when we abuse one another. We just weaken one another for the slaughter of the enemy.
Wow. Great teaching, Brother Derek. Y'all really bringing it. And we haven't even touched on, I wouldn't even get into the molestation aspect of the violence because that is ever present, but that's for another show, another time. I can't even wrap my head around it, but that's really permeating our community. Dr. Kill, your last remark before we close out the show. And thank you, Brother Derek.
Thank you, brother. Outstanding words. Well, I would just end with this. What you do speaks so loudly, people cannot hear what you say. So we got work to do.
just like that. He was just like that, Brother Derek. Oh, my God. Okay, look. Peace in the Hood, Working with Gang Members to End Violence. This book by Dr. Akil Bashir and Christina Hogg, right? Did I say it right?
I got to get it.
Brother Derek, look, here it is.
Good words, my brother.
Peace
Good
in
words.
the Hood. Peace in the Hood. I got it, and I also donated it to a school, too. So this is PCITI International Urban Safety Community Violence Intervention Training Specialist. Again, I like the motto, violence reduction through proactive instruction. Brother Derek, tell us your organization. Oh, let me give you the website and the number. It's PCITI.net. PCITI.net. 800-926-2155. 800-926-2155. Brother Derek, you have the Mentoring Black Boys. You're on a tour. You're an author. Tell us how we can patch into those three things.
You can follow me on social media at Derek Muhammad. That's DericMuhammad. and keep up with me that way. I'll follow you back, and we'll keep up one with another. Dr. Akil, it's been an honor to be on the show with you, brother, and the Spirit is telling me that we have some work to do together.
And Brother Derek, I'm just a reflection of yourself, brother. We have to stay in touch. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Maybe we can do some Brothers Against Violence town hall meetings.
Yes, ma'am.
What do you think about that,
I'll
Brother
come
Derek?
to California.
Yeah, we'll come to Texas.
I'll come to California.
And I'll come your way too, soldier.
We're going to have a call about that. Hey, everybody listening and viewing, y'all going to come to the town hall meetings? Because we're talking, you clearly heard them talk about solutions. We're not just drumming up the emotions and the reality of it and leaving us here. They're talking about solutions, and that I really appreciate. You gave a lot of solutions that we can hold on to. Before we go, Brother Hannibal said we need another 1 hour, sis. Okay, Brother Hannibal, let me get with these businesses and get some sponsorships, and maybe we'll do that. Another hour. Sister Valerie says we must break the cycle of generational domestic abuse stemming back from slavery. And they're all saying facts, nothing but support for what you all are saying. You need to. Oh, yeah. Okay. In the town hall meeting, we got you, Brother Hannah. We want some. See, already we have the support. So thank you all for tuning in. Dr. Akil, Brother Derek, thank you both for being here so much.
Honored to be here.
Yeah. Thank you to everyone viewing. I do want to say again, finalcall.com. And remember, up with Jesus, down with Santa, justice or else. The stores are hurting, and they're hurting for good reason. And look, like Brother Derek said, we can't shout Black Lives Matter and then we mistreat each other. So let's not do that. Acts of kindness. Say hi to your neighbor, no matter.